May you find happiness and peace, and may your home stand the test of time.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary. Today I'll be reacting to Charlie Traeger Climate Change Radical. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, Mr. Kirk. I think climate change is a much more serious issue than the conservative movement gives it credit for. And so my question is, what common ground can we find regarding climate action, and how can we get more conservatives in on the movement? What can we find that we agree on?
Cool. I just want to make sure I understand where you're coming from, and this is not a trick question. Can you define what you mean by climate change?
Primarily reducing carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases.
Got it. So is your argument that rising global temperatures are tied to carbon emissions?
To my understanding, the scientific consensus is quite solid on that, yes.
Got it. Okay. So, again, not a trick question. What is carbon? It's not a trick question.
Okay. It's an element.
Yeah, right.
And carbon dioxide traps heat in the atmosphere.
Right.
So,
So carbon is life, right? So carbon, yeah, exactly. You can't have life without
I've heard this before, though, and the
Yeah,
idea that carbon is plant food is great, but the reality is when there's 40 billion tons being emitted a year by a network of global factories and global tailpipes, that absolutely has an impact on climate. And
Right,
I'm
so-
disappointed that this is the reaction
Well, hold
to
on.
the question, honestly, because I don't know how you all, we're in an agricultural area, we're seeing it worse every year. It's getting
Well, hold on,
bad,
let me ask
and
a question.
I don't know why conservative movement insists on resisting the scientific
Well, I'm not
consensus
resisting. I'm
on this.
asking what carbon is. Okay, so let's make sure we're clear on what I'm saying. Do you think there could be other explanations as to why global temperatures are rising,
Yes.
such as?
They've studied them, and it's not due to anything other than the emissions, is to my
Okay, so
understanding.
not solar flares, global tilt.
Well, they've accounted for those, and they've found out that those are not the main drivers of the climate change that we're seeing.
Okay, so you trust, I just want to make sure I understand, you trust consensus from scientists that put forward reports?
No, I trust ExxonMobil's own scientists who found this out in the 1980s and hid the findings for decades so that they wouldn't lose money.
Right. So, excuse me, just as a kind of side note, I'm unbelievably skeptical when I hear scientists say, but let's pretend you're right. Okay, let's pretend that climate change is an existential threat. Would that be something that you say?
To our existence, to the human species, probably not. I imagine the rich will always find an ark to live in while the rest of us have our crops fail.
You have some nuance, so that's fair. So let's talk then about, let's pretend you're right. Let's say that there's some solutions. What would be a solution? Should we get rid of fossil fuels?
You know, if we could just filter out it's the carbon that's doing it. So I don't know about getting off of fossil fuels, but if we could
see,
find
that's why I
a
asked
way to
about your
filter out the
premise.
carbon.
The amount of certainty you have in a planet that is so massive with such unbelievable biodiversity to immediately act that we, the humans, are the only reason that global temperatures might be going up, I think is a flawed hypothesis. Because if you're wrong, then we might try to find a solution that actually might be more about private property confiscation and wealth deterioration, aka Marxism, not actually solving the problem. That's why I challenge the hypothesis. What else might be contributing to it? So let's just ask some very basic questions. So if carbon is the problem, would you support planting 1 trillion trees?
Yes.
Okay, good. We agree. So that wouldn't.
Sequestering carbon is part of the solution. I think there's a broader set of solutions than what the Democratic Party specifically has been bringing to the table. But again, this resistance by the conservatives to just not acknowledge that this carbon is an issue.
Why do you think we ask questions? Because we're dumb, or why do you think?
Skepticism with good reason.
Okay, good. No,
yeah.
okay,
but
good.
at some point, when in looking for the answer, you need to acknowledge that the answer can be found, and the answer has been found. People have spent their lives and careers studying this for decades. It's been over 100 years ago since people were first talking about the idea that carbon was trapping heat. So this is not a new idea.
Do you have any fear that the solution might be worse than the problem?
What solution? Sure, some.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, for
But I'd like
example,
to broaden-
mandatory electric vehicles?
Oh, no, electrical vehicles will mine the ocean to death before we get everyone an electric car. It's not a solution.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's also, cobalt's really, really bad for the environment.
Yeah, we need to go car-free and build walkable communities again, actually.
That's a very bad idea. See, now we're getting somewhere, okay? Bad idea.
Bad idea.
Cars are freedom, right? Without a vehicle, you are a captive of the government in an open-air prison, right? And so, just look at San Francisco.
It just means you can walk to the grocery store without needing a vehicle.
Right. That's a 15-minute city model. But no, this is important, and we're not going to
I've been studying architecture for 4 years. I've been studying a little bit of urbanism too.
Right.
It's not taking away your freedoms, the fact that you get to go to a grocery store and a library and a coffee store within a 15-minute walk, folks.
Okay.
That's actually independence from the automobile. But that's
But
aside,
independence is being able to go where you want to go when you want to go there. That's what independence
Yeah.
is. But we're not
stuck
going
in
to
traffic
find,
then?
here's the one thing that I want to make sure, I don't get this from you because you're coming at it from a good place. The panic over climate becomes such a priority by people that also have the solution in mind. I'm not saying it's you, right?
It's fair.
And
That's
so
fair.
we have a built-in healthy skepticism over the last decade that we are being constantly lied to by the same amount of cabal of criminals, and at the very least, exaggerating the threat, okay? Exaggerating the threat, where we are told we must take our freedoms and liberties away, we must reconfigure our life. And I'll be very honest with you, that with all of the pressing challenges that face humanity, like the most suicidal generation in history, the most drug-addicted generation in history, the most alcohol-addicted generation in history, the fixation on an abstraction of rising global temperatures is an academic distraction from real material suffering that people have when the activists, not necessarily you, but the loudest activists, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, they want to get rid of fossil fuels, they want to disenfranchise millions of people of work, and they want to basically put the entire grid in an unrealistic solar, wind, and turbine type model.
Mr. Kirk, you sound so much like the liberal coastal elites that you rail against, because the reality is the first year that my family bought cows, 2012, we had a record-breaking drought, and hay had to be trucked in from Oklahoma or Texas. The following spring, it rained so hard and so much it broke records, and the bridges washed out, and my mother couldn't get to work. So this is very much a real issue.
Let me ask you,
We're
in
an
the last 50
agricultural
years,
region.
have there been irregular weather patterns in the 60s, 70s, or 80s? Yes. I would just close with this. You could talk to any rancher or farmer here in Missouri.
They're waking up to
Unpredictability
it.
is part of the agrarian lifestyle. To act as
Yeah.
if you could perfectly model it, and but here's the one thing about climate change that drives me crazy, and I'll just close with this, is that no matter what happens, it gets warmer, it's climate change, it gets colder, it's climate change, with tornado, it's climate change, it's sunny, it's climate change. It's the one thing that confirms the hypothesis regardless of the result. And so it's the perfect thing to argue for. You might be right. I don't think you are, that rising global temperatures are necessarily tied to human activity. But every solution I hear, every solution would obliterate the American economy and destroy our ability to use our greatest asset, with his fossil fuels, natural gas, liquid natural gas, and oil. Thank you so much. I got to get to the next question. Thank you.
Wow, well, that's a smart answer, because I see the reason why we are producing what we are producing today is because we want to make life easy for human. That is why invention is being made. And I think depriving people of that invention simply because we feel like it's damaging things is not 100% right. Okay? Because he's talking about his farm products. We make use of, let's say, bulldozer, tractors, to till the soil and those other things, which they also emit carbon, to the atmosphere. And we are not talking about that because, okay, maybe it has a good end result, which is like the crops we are going to farm and, get from the soil. But that does not mean it's right, okay? So before he came to this show, he made use of, I don't know, maybe train or maybe a taxi or something, which he would have walked. But still, that is what invention is trying to make life, easy for everyone, so that, what you spend hours to do now, it will take you a little less than minutes to do it. And that is what these cars are there for, these other things that, releases this carbon to the atmosphere. That is what they are there for. And we have other pressing issues, like Charlie says, issues like, let's say, the high drug rate, high alcohol rate, and so many other things that we are not talking about. These are things that are really, really, hurting us. And let's say when I was a bit young, the weather was a bit cooler, yeah. But now it's like everywhere is hot. You see, if there is no light, I can sleep because of how hot the weather is. Well, I don't know if it's just the carbon that we are releasing to the atmosphere that is causing this, or there are other factors causing this. But I think it's got to a point, I think early this year, whereby when the rain started, it became so much that a whole lot of houses were taken over by this rain, and all of a sudden it just ceased. So it's like it's not a continuous process. It's something that happens once in a while. Let's say the rain will fall in this huge number, and all of a sudden we don't get the rain again, or it falls in lower bits, and sometimes it comes like that's what Charlie saying. Charlie says climate change has always been there. It's before you get this hot weather, and all of a sudden a cooler weather, and it has always been there, even in the 80s. Anyway, this is a beautiful one. I enjoy this, and I enjoy the fact that the guy was able to air his view. Letting Charlie know that there are things we can do, and he's totally right. I think there are places that we can easily walk to, instead of picking our what is it called, using our car. Or I know we want to make life easy for ourselves, but at least exercising is also helping us live longer. Because it will help us burn those calories that we are building in every day. And if it's a little walk, I would advise us to take walk, because it helps burn down calories. I think when I exercise more is when my car is 40. I think during that period I feel like, yes, I need to burn out fat. But how long will I continue like that? It is better to register for gym, burn out those fats, instead of just relying on invention to make life a bit easy for us. No matter how invention make life easy, we need to help ourselves too, to live longer. And I think the age rate is gradually dropping because a whole lot of us have choose not to exercise or do other things that will make our life longer. And that is it. This is a beautiful one. And aside from the climate change that we are noticing, I feel the high rate of fertilizer that we are adding to our crops are doing more harm than the climate change, because a whole lot of crops are being produced in a shorter period of time, which is anyway invention. But I think we need to look into what is being added to such, or what is being added to those crops that makes them produce faster, and also know if they are like healthy for us to consume. Because the high rates of death, or the way youth die now is so alarming. And the way diseases are being spread now, we have high rate of cancer, we have other diseases that are springing forth. And it's like every year, or we notice, or we discover new diseases that were not there in the 80s, or that were not there in the 70s. It's like the more we try to invent, the more things are becoming bad. So let's know what we add to this food we eat. Let's try our possible best to burn out calories, to exercise more often, because it helps our hearts pump better. Anyway, this is a beautiful one. I enjoyed this, and I want to see more videos from Charlie. If you have any recommendation, let me know in the comment section. If it is the first time visiting the channel, click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remember this.